Hey, what's up? This is Envious Allied. I'm going to be going over 3.5 protection and whatever the fuck. Protect and support. There you go. Ha. So we're obviously we're not going to go through skins or achievement changes because those aren't major points of balance that we're going to be covering. The whole point of this video is to cover anything competitively that could potentially happen and theorycraft what could go on in 3.5. So, if you guys haven't caught on to 3.4, make sure you check the previous video beforehand, and you can see my thoughts on 3.4 as I felt like this patch passed by pretty quickly. Sovereignty. So sovereignty fell off a lot of support. A lot of people, if you're a support main in the current meta, you just don't build it. Some supports do. I have built it, but it feels generally pretty lackluster in terms of helping your teammates out, etc. So 20 to 30 in increased physical protection aura, which I do definitely dig. I feel like that's a pretty big deal. Will you rush solve? Probably not, but you could definitely get this item around like 5th or 6th slot, and I think and help out your teammates against lots of those physical carries. So solve even better now, as it should help the team out and be a little bit more tanky. I mean, 30 physical protection is quite a lot. Throwing dagger. Throwing dagger and golden bow have an interesting life cycle. With this change, paired more defined role by increasing damage the passive does to minion and jungle monsters. These items are now increasing their defined by ability to assist gods with clear. So now this is probably the hugest change of the patch. So obviously to keep more jungles viable and make sure that you have any sort of a cleave clear. New passive: all basic attacks will also hit enemies within a 15 unit radius of the target for 25% of the damage to gods and 50% of the damage to minion and jungle camps. So basically, if you're too lazy didn't read, would be if you have this item and you start with it level 1, you can very easily full clear like let's say red buff and kill the remaining like little minions. Same thing with fire elementals. You can group all of them up and auto attack it like twice now, and you don't need to auto attack each one individually or use an ability now. Golden bow, new passive: all base attacks also hit enemies with it in a 15 unit radius of the target for 50% of the damage to gods and 75% of minions and jungle camps. So this is pretty big because you can be slamming down the AoE. Like, really, it's just to help gods with single target clear a little bit more effectively. And I dig it. Will this affect anything? It depends. We'll have to see it in play. I don't think too much is going to change. I think the dominant junglers are here to stay. But in your casual ranked match, you maybe could get more uses out of a racking jungle. You might be able to clear a little bit faster, which means you'll be a little bit more viable. So these changes are overall good and welcomed, at least in my department. And then Wing Demon obviously prevents all healing. That's a no-no. Hi-Rez, you need to never let this happen again, but hopefully at least they caught it on and they're patching it. So can I get a God bless? Amus and Slob. So this is actually a huge change, but it's good. Will it make him viable? No. Can you play him a little bit more in your casual and low level ranked matches? Absolutely. So Amus and Cobb, the slow from the honey has been changed to 20% at all rank, which is pretty huge because you don't ever max out honey and really use it as a damage supplement, as honey early game was a very like it was a 5% slow, which basically didn't mean anything, and you would mostly use it for the full clear. So now having it at 20% all ranks, it makes it a little bit more useful to have, especially in the early laning phases, which is cool. Artemis. It's tricky with Art because I think that she's trash competitively. I don't think in any kind of SPL scene there's any reason to pick Artemis, right? Because she can't clear the wave. She has really bad board control. And defensively she's pretty good, but with even a good enough dive comp, she will auto die to any sort of coordinated use of abilities out of an assassin, jungler, or a mid lane mage, right? So Artemis is in a tough spot because if she does get ahead, she is insanely overpowered. She has so much damage there in her kit, and it's great, and she can do so much damage with her boar and overall auto attacks. Especially, she has one of the best passives for hunters ever known to man, with her 15% crit after 3 auto attacks. So she does a lot, right? But the biggest thing with Artemis is the fact that she doesn't have lane clear and she doesn't have board control and she has no escape. So because of those reasons alone, she's been very out of the meta in terms of viability in competitive scene and high level ranks, because you will just feed your brains out. Lower level casuals and lower level ranked, yeah, you could probably get away with her. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to pick the Artemis in these kind of game modes, especially now with this buff to be a little bit more viable. So this buff is huge. It have to be some testing. I don't think it'll be too much of a change overall to her kit. instead of more early game attack speed with the 40% instead of 35. But you generally wouldn't max. Not that you wouldn't max, but you wouldn't max this first anyway. You usually max suppress the insulin, which is her main form of poke and damage. But maybe worth testing a full Vengeful Assault build, like you're just maxing this out first and then get Ichvo online and just gas pedal someone. But I doubt it, especially with crit being such a weird spot. It's hard for Artemis, so I don't expect to see any kind of rise in viability here. Bastet, yeah, so rank 1 was dealing magical damage. Good thing I maxed out her D-Claw second, so I didn't have to deal with that too hard. Chock, so Chock had an issue where he could teleport. He would throw his axe a certain amount of distance and teleport, and after he uses his torrent, he can cancel it to get stuck in walls. So an example would be if I throw it across the fire giant wall, I can get stuck inside the fire giant wall, which is pretty funny, but also pretty bad because you wouldn't be able to get out. Especially, you would have to wait for your cooldowns to come up, and you could easily get attacked, and it was just bad. So they fixed that. Chiron, now you have a 40% slower firing. This is good, adds more counterplay to the god, and now you really have to be quick on your toes with those snipes in a big scale team fight if you really want to get that target, because they will easily be able to run away from you. And really, this wouldn't hurt his viability at all. His damage comes from his overall kit anyway, and it's pretty strong. It's pretty strong damage. So I think the Chiron ult nerf was well needed. So God bless. I think Chiron's still gonna be a top 2 hunter. Isis. So they keep trying to hit her, and they're trying to make her defined as an early game bullshit god, which is fun. I think that's cool to label her that way, but now they're trying to reduce the wing gust scaling from 40 to 30% per hit, which is still pretty big. 10% nerf there is going to hurt, especially late game, but really Isis's big mid to late game damage is the max range spirit balls for 1000 plus damage, the stun, the silence to take away the magical protections, especially late game. And obviously her ult is the best objective secure in the game. So while this will hurt, it will be noticed. Will this stop Isis? Absolutely not. You're still going to see the same old Isis goodness by mid to late game. And I think this is a great nerf. They just hit the wrong area. Maybe they should have taken away a nerf on the 2 if they're going to limit her possibility of, like, for example, her scaling should maybe be lower down on her spirit ball, because that's really where everything starts by mid to late game. Khepri. So we do see that base health removed or toned down from 510 to 460. I don't think this is going to change anything. I think Khepri's going to be a top support for a while unless they change his kit. A good example of changing his kit, which I think would be worthy of checking out, would be if, for example, Khepri could not ult himself, right? So like the counterplay there is that if he can't ult himself, then he has to play super careful. He can't initiate into a team fight, right? Like, so you can't have Khepri's pulling you because they could just, oh, well, if I get low, I just ult myself. Well, no, that's not an option. They similarly did this to Ray. I'm actually white right now. Could you not, camera? Could you calm the fuck down? So, yeah, a big change with this would be Rhaegar in Heroes of the Storm. They made it so he couldn't ult himself, which at first seemed pretty ridiculous, but it solved like a decent amount of the problems, right, with his big burst heal ult that just instantly, and this is the reason I bring Rhaegar's ult in similarity of Khepri. Khepri does a full-on fucking revive, unique to any other MOBA. I mean, there's MOBAs with revives, but like it is so tough, especially with the amount of CC and power creep and Smite. Khepri's ult does a lot, and he has lane control, lane dominance, great CC, like everything about him is great. They did not skimp at all with this big giant bug. So really with his ult, I feel like if he couldn't ult himself, he would put himself in a little bit more awkward position. He couldn't be all in aggressive. He would have to be very aware of what is going on, right? So I think that's a big deal for Khepri, but that's just my suggestion. As far as like this nerf though, it's whatever. Fixed the issue with Poseidon, cool. Serqet recently got the buff stick. I don't know why. It looks like, I don't think this will make her viable, but with CDR less effective and crit being a little bit weirder, they decided to buff her, which I can definitely respect that. I dig that. So it'll be interesting to have more Serqets kind of roaming around play. And the biggest thing here to note is that like damage, scaling, everything got buffed. The cooldown got reduced on Deathbane, and it's going to be rough. And it's not going to be rough as in like Serqet is too strong kind of rough. It's going to be rough as in like let's say crit comes back into the meta, or CDR comes back into the meta for whatever reason, she's going to be even stronger. So very scared. We'll see. And CDR already still is in the meta. If a Serqet goes Jotun's breastplate, that's more than enough. That's actually max CDR. So we'll see. I don't think this is gonna put her ahead. If anything, I think she's gonna be in the same spot because she's already kind of used in competitive play as we speak. So a little bit more use. Skadi. So they decided to like nerf buff her. They increased the cooldown on the dash from her Winter Wolf to 2 to 5 seconds, which is hella needed. It did way. Alright, so this fucking puppy would dash and hit you for 1,000 damage late game, and then it would dash again in 2 seconds and hit you for another 1,000 damage. And it's like you can't run from that. You can't run from the puppy, especially with ult popped. It's like you're going to die. So needed, and then Winter's Restoration also got reduced. So overall, I feel like this is great to tone this bitch down. I'm pumped. Let's see. So Wukong, they gave him 20 HP. It's just 20 HP. It doesn't actually. I mean, like, it's gonna help him early game, but whatever, right? Like, that's like one Roman archer hitting him in the fucking nipple. Earthshaker increased the point blank damage from 50% to 60%. Reduced the travel at max range. Okay. It's not gonna make him viable. You're gonna have a little bit more fun in your casual ranked matches. Cool, right? Aegis Assault no longer knocks back minions. Yes, dude. Yes. So here's the biggest thing with this Zeus change, right? So Zeus's Aegis Assault, which was your primary ability you start with, and this made me stop playing Zeus on stream completely. The biggest thing was he would throw it out in a wave, and it would knock the whole wave apart, so you wouldn't be able to clear the wave. It didn't make any sense why Hi-Rez would ever do that bounce or god design at all. It blew my fucking mind that was actually a god balance change. So the fact that you would throw your shield, it would hit the wave, and then it would just knock everyone all away. So you would auto attack your shield to full clear the wave, and you can only get like the melees, right? So it just made it was just so hard to actually clear the wave that I was like, fuck it, Zeus can't clear the wave now because of that. So believe it or not, this is such a slept on change. This is gonna make Zeus way more viable, and he's gonna have way easier of a time in mid lane, soul lane, wherever he goes, because he can fuck the wave. Like Aegis Assault clears the wave at level fucking 1. The biggest problem with Zeus is that he dies by mid to late game. Like he dies a lot. That's always been his thing. He can't get away from damage. So yeah. Overall, I feel like all these changes are pretty sweet, and really I'm excited. I'm excited for 3.5. Hopefully it works out okay. Make sure you guys subscribe to my YouTube. That's it for me. Thank you guys for watching. I'm out. Peace.